second-hand equipment off of the docks, between the winches for dragging the stone up to the crane and the cranes themselves. So this crane was 1850s. It arrived in Ballyknocken. So if you imagine this at second-hand in the 1850s, this was probably loading barges and boats late 1700s. So it's amazing to think that something can go back this, you know, we can stretch back that far with a piece of equipment like this. Now, last year, myself and Eamon Byrne and John Holmes and Thomas Foster went up and we had a look at it, and it was on the ground and it was very, very sad, and it was rotting away, and its timbers, you could actually pick up a handful of the wood out of the jib or out of its mast and just turn it into dust in your hand, and it would just float away. So we said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could do that this year and have that for the festival, you know. And it's a very different lifting device than the crane we have up there. The crane that was up there is, you could say, 100 years in the difference between the two of them working in Ballyknocken. And this one is a fixed mast, so the mast that goes up here, the long beam reaching out with the rope hanging off it, it doesn't move like the other one. The other one's a derrick. It can almost reach out and pull back so they could fish the stone up out of the quarry. But with this one, it would only move left to right. So it was quite hard crane to work. They used to drag the rope out and they would be pulling on it, and you'd have 2 to 4 men each side. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And their day would be there in the quarry trying to pull stones out and lift stuff, and ropes and chains slipping off and all sorts of, you know, things. But they were relatively safe. Nothing would ever, you know, happen. Now, what we decided to do with this winter, we restored it, and John not being around, unfortunately, we got together, myself, Thomas Foster, John Melia, Martin Fisher, Michael Callanan up there in the forge, he's not down here now, and Ger Devine. Now Ger, it's his carpentry, that's his beauty in that. He's a very good carpenter, and he got working on the carpentry, and Martin restored, and Moz, and we restored the metal work on it. We had to explode it into pieces. It was all over the place, and we built it back. Now, because of the type of design a crane is like this, it's very, very simple to put back together because they were designed to be simple. So what we're going to do now is, if I can get Martin Fisher and John Melia, Moz, wherever you are, they're here somewhere. I'd love them now. We're going to lift this stone here with, just to show you the way it operated. Now, there's these, you'll hear it pinging. I'll put the mic up so you can hear it pinging. It was what they call dogs. They lock off, so if you kept winding up and you got tired, you could let go, and the machine held itself, it would hold the load. So, are we ready? Off we go. So as you can see it there now, lifting up the stone. Now this crane could lift up to 3 tons in weight. And on up we go. Now what they would do with this, they'd be loading the carts for the quarries, they'd be loading the bogies to bring up the pieces to the banker masons, and they'd be loading generally anything that they needed to lift would come up with this crane. So now we'll let it back down nice and easy. Huh? Okay, yeah, you show it turning, yeah. Because it sits down on a pin. It's very simple. There's a pin in the bottom of the crane, down on the very bottom on the centre mast, and it's only about 3 inches long. And that goes up into the, yeah, that's it, Miles, that'll be there, that's it, be fired out over a rock now in a second. And that's what it sits on. And these 2 stay masts that are behind me here, going back behind into the stone, that's what determined its weight and lift. Because what you did was, it was called loading the legs. So these legs were loaded up with the weight that you expected to put on the front of it. So they would overload these. So there'd be up to 5 tons of stone dropped on top of these, and they're pinned down into rocks. So that would effectively ballast the whole thing for when you were lifting. So we're very proud of this crane, and it's here back again after its life in the quarry here. It left this quarry in 1905 and went to Foster's quarry. They bought it off of O'Reilly's, or P.P. O'Reilly that time. And I went up there and it worked with the Fosters up until the 50s. And then its mast was lowered down on the ground and it stayed dormant up until we got it and restored it. So it's almost 60 years since this crane lifted a stone, which is another fascinating thing that happened. So that's just on the crane itself. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to show a technique of splitting granite.